Hey guys, I am Sampada and let's talk One Piece ships. So if you came here looking for the Going Merry or the Oro Jackson, then I'm sorry to disappoint you. Let's begin with the criteria that I think are going to be my basic agenda for making a ship good and acceptable for me. 1. Their individual personalities, describing how they are as individuals. Number 2, development of the ship. So, this is basically how the characters changed their views about each other, how their behaviors changed because of each other, and in general, a before and after of both the parties of the ship. 3. Moments throughout the series. 4. Parallels between the two characters. 5. Lastly, and most importantly, why it makes sense for these characters to be together in general, including from the most important character and story reasons to the least important and even just titular of reasons. So, before we begin, I would like to tell you three things. One, I am not going to be considering whether the ship is canon or not, because probably by the end of One Piece, no ships that weren't introduced as canon are going to be canon. Because One Piece is about adventure and friendship, and its genre is shonen, so there's not a lot of room for romance. Also, whether a ship is canon or not largely doesn't affect it at all. A ship is still a good ship even if it is not canon, and yet it makes sense for the characters to be together. 2. I am going to be using the anime as a canon reference point because when the story is actually progressing, there isn't a lot of time for many of the characters to actually have genuine interactions with each other because something is constantly happening. There's always something better to focus on, which is where fillers become important. They give us more insight on how these characters think or behave with each other when they have nothing else on their mind. 3. I'm going to be doing all kinds of ships, including normal ships, yaoi ships, and yuri ships as well. Now that we have that out of the way, let's begin with our ships. Zoro and Sanji. So, 1. Their individual personalities. Zoro is a very stoic and a practical character who doesn't really express his emotions often. He is a firm believer and follower of the ways of Bushido, or the Japanese samurai warrior code of chivalry. He keeps to himself, usually spending his time drinking, sleeping, or training. He keeps to himself and values strength and character more than anything else. Sanji, on the other hand, wears his heart on his sleeve. He is a firm believer and follower of the Kishido, or the French knightly code of chivalry. He is often seen swirling around women, having perverted thoughts, and often being very expressive with his emotions. 2. Development of this ship. This ship has always been in my eyes personally since the first time I saw these two interact. Zoro was ready to sacrifice his life for his dream and was dedicated to a seemingly impossible goal. Sanji, on the other hand, was keeping his dream buried in his heart because of the feelings of being indebted to Zeph. Zoro was his first encounter to this attitude of being willing to die for his dream. They started off getting annoyed with each other as they seemingly crossed each other's morals, but when they cooperated at Arlong Park, they both realized that they were actually a really good team. Over the course of the series, this relationship developed into a beautiful rivalry where they always tried to one-up each other but still have each other's backs at all times. 3. Moments throughout the series. Zoro and Sanji, being the two of the first and major protagonists of the series, share a lot of moments throughout the series. Zoro worried about Sanji when he dove into the water while fighting Arlong's crew. Sanji asking about Zoro's wound. Zoro and Sanji doing the dishes together on the ship. Sanji asking if Zoro believes in God in Logtown. The hunting contest on Little Garden. Sanji saying it out loud for Zoro that he was scared that Luffy might lose against Crocodile. Talking about Mantra on Skypiea and Sanji telling Zoro to use his swords to help him with the Stone Balls too. The Davy Back fight. Zoro looking for Sanji's guidance after the destruction of Frankie House. Zoro worried about Sanji on the sea train. Sanji speaking for Zoro and convincing Chopper that Usopp was going to be fine even though he couldn't get on the King Bull. Sanji saving Usopp and Zoro's smile. The Dogween and the Old Guy, which are Sanji's and Zoro's zombies respectively, having clashing personalities and not cooperating despite not having any memories. Zoro worried that Sanji was going to die at the hands of Oz. Sanji trying to stop Zoro from sacrificing his life to Kuma on Thriller Bark. Sanji trying to stop Kuma from going after Zoro and Usopp and Brook on Sabaody. Meeting each other the first after the time skip. Zoro sitting near Sanji when he almost nose-bled to death. Sanji saying that Zoro is a softie and leaving Tashigi to him was okay on Punk Hazard. Zoro telling Sanji that he was going to get stabbed on Dressrosa. Zoro telling Usopp that their friends are not dead because Sanji is with them on Zou. Zoro worrying about Sanji after listening to the conversation about the wind smokes. Saving Otoko together in Wano country. Sanji stopping Zoro from attacking Orochi. 4. The parallels between these two characters. These two characters are often portrayed as being opposites of each other. Like whenever Zoro takes up a fight, it is either to get stronger or to win. While whenever Sanji takes up a fight, it is usually to protect someone. These characters are actually more similar than they give themselves credit for. They have very similar values of putting their pride before their lives. A captain that doesn't demand the respect of the crew is destined to crumble, and many more. They have a lot of unsaid parallels in the series as well, like being the only two Straw Hats who were recruited in the presence of no other Straw Hat. Zoro being the first one, and with Sanji, Usopp and Zoro had already gone to chase after Nami. Both of them are very proficient at using their respective blades, being swords and kitchen knives, both being strong enough to stand side by side with Luffy, and both having to do something with the number 3, where Sanji's name literally means sun, 3G, or Zoro uses 3 sword styles and wears 3 earrings in one of his ears. 5. Why it makes sense for these characters to be together. A. Zoro's disinterest in women and Sanji's maiden awakening. Zoro is portrayed as a character who generally has a complete disinterest in women, shown right from the Arabasta arc that he was the only one who didn't want to peep on Nami and Vivi bathing, and often shows no interest in any women at all. Sanji, on the other hand, does have an extensive admiration for women, but in the anime, Sanji underwent something known as the Maiden's Awakening during the time skip, saying that he has the heart of a maiden. With the introduction of characters like Kiku and Yamato, there is more room to explore this concept for Sanji as well. B. Vulnerability. Zoro is known to represent strength among the Straw Hats. The only times that Zoro has been vulnerable in fights is when Sanji has got his back. Zoro had fainted during his fight with Hachi, only to have Sanji notice it and cover his back when Kurobi tried to take advantage. Zoro was begging Kuma to take his life instead of Luffy's, and Sanji showed up quite literally standing between him and death. Zoro was down at Sabaody, and Sanji rushed to help his and Usopp's team run away. The only back that Zoro has seen protecting him is Sanji's. Every time Zoro has been vulnerable, Sanji has covered for him. C. Equality. Both the people thinking that they are equal in the relationship is one of the most basic foundations that is required to make a relationship work. Sanji will never see himself as an equal to the woman. He will always put the woman on a pedestal, which isn't a good foundation for an actual lasting relationship. The person who Sanji truly sees as his equal is Zoro. They are rivals. They are equals. The only person that Zoro thinks is equal to him is Sanji in terms of strength, both physical and moral. He already thinks Luffy is someone who stands above him, as he states when Usopp is trying to come back to the crew, saying that if the man who stands above me humiliates himself like that, I will be the one to leave the crew next. D. Love is always a hurricane. Sanji stated in the beginning of the Along Park that love is always a hurricane. For Zoro, falling in love itself would be considered a hurricane since he doesn't consider himself to be the type to place value in any of these things. He says himself when Sanji is kidnapped that marriage and relationships are a really small deal. Sanji, on the other hand, falling in love with a woman wouldn't be a hurricane. He expects to fall in love with a woman. He wants to fall in love with a woman. That's not a hurricane. A hurricane would be if Sanji and his maiden heart fell in love with a guy that he has been around for a lot of time, has always picked fights with, who he always has had a certain respect for and a certain admiration for. E. Other minor points. On Punk Hazard, Nami canonically states that if Zoro is there, then Sanji will be busy arguing with him the whole time. I personally interpret this as Sanji giving more importance to arguing with Zoro rather than paying attention to Nami's body. The only person Zoro explicitly worries about is Sanji, whether it's on Along Park or the sea train or Srila Bagh or at the time he almost knows blood to death. Since worrying is another form of caring about the person, it is likely that Zoro will choose to be in a relationship where he already cares about the person. Any of Zoro's or Sanji's openly romantic encounters happen with each other. They have almost kissed each other twice in the series in episodes 131 and 226. Zoro caught Sanji while he was in Nami's body, and Brook specifically mentioned how romantic it was. So, there you have it. These are my reasons as to why ship Zoro and Sanji. Let me know what you think in the comments and also what ship you want me to do next. And I'll see you next time. Bye bye.